Two things are true of Deus Ex. Whenever you mention it, someone will reinstall it, and every time you play it, you'll find something you didn't know about. Liberty Island, the opening level of Deus Ex, is one of the best designed openings to any game. Not only is it memorable in its own right, it sets you up to play the rest of the game in a way that will get the most out of it. Before I talk about all the great things it does, I'll give a quick outline of what actually happens in the level. Firstly, you need to make your character. This simple style of character creation of assigning stat points is a little basic and dated by today's standards, and it's hard to immediately know which skills will be useful. On the upside, it does enable you to build a variety of characters if you know what you're doing, and most of the skills are useful. Swimming is probably less useful than the rest, but it still has its uses. Immediately after creating your character, you'll meet your brother Paul. A nice touch is that Paul will actually change appearance based on the face you picked for JC. Paul gives you the choice of a few weapons, most notably the Get Gun, which is otherwise unobtainable in this level. It serves as both a rocket launcher and a lockpick in a pinch. If you do choose the Get Gun, you'll immediately notice it takes up half your inventory. Inventory Tetris is alive and well in Deus Ex. You're handed a map of the island and told about an informant on the other end. There's a UNATCO base on the map, which contains some nice rewards if you choose to visit it. Your brief is to capture the terrorist leader inside of the statue, and you're also told about Gunther Hermann, who's being held captive inside the statue. Rescuing Gunther is an optional objective, and you can choose to skip it without too many consequences. There are some worthwhile secrets to find if you explore the outside of the statue, but you're going to have to go inside eventually. To go inside, there are two entrances. The most obvious entrance is the front, but it's heavily guarded. It has some turrets that you'll either need to hack using your hacking skill, or find a password if you don't have hacking. There's also a mech and a ton of NSF forces guarding it. If you're planning to go in guns blazing, especially if you've got the Get Gun, this entrance is fine. But if you're trying to play non-lethally or stealthily, there's simply too many people around for it to be a viable approach. Around the back of the statue, there's a stack of shipping containers. With some careful platforming, you can jump your way directly onto the second level of the statue. This gives you a clear route to the terrorist leader. There are a few guards, but you have plenty of angles to approach them. If you want to rescue Gunther Hermann, you can also go down to the lure level from the back. This provides a much safer route to where he's being hidden. In typical Deus Ex style, to access Gunther Hermann you need to get past a laser grid. You can deactivate it with a multi-tool or find the vent that leads to a side door. It's made clear that the NSF are a disorganised organisation and that they're only occupying the statue, so their security has some obvious holes if you're observant. Later levels are going to require a bit more clever thinking to find these secret entrances. After going through the grate, there's also these boxes that you can use a bin to climb up on. This gives you a good angle to take out some NSF soldiers if you're playing lethally. Once you rescue Gunther, you can either send him home or give him a gun to clean out the lower level of the statue. Whichever you choose, it's a short journey up to the top of the tower where the terrorist leader resides. You're told to get him to surrender rather than kill him, and if you do, he begins to taunt you. He then explained that the government made a plague to control people. I'm not going to get deep into the story in this video, but this conspiracy theory is along the right lines, although quite simplistic compared to the truth of the situation. After this point, UNATCO clear out Liberty Island and the primary objective is finished. It's not a huge level, but it's very open, and if you're dedicated to finding all the secrets, it can certainly take a while. The first great thing this level does is encourage you to play different playstyles. Right from the beginning, you get character creation and then given a weapon choice. You're making deliberate decisions about how to play. Your brother also encourages you to avoid killing people, which lets you know that playing non-lethally is something that people will notice. Whether you choose to play stealthy or combat focused, lethal or non-lethal, the level has options to accommodate it. It's also full of rewards for players who put their non-combat skills to good use. It even has a hidden area that rewards you for picking swimming and deciding to use it. While it's not as open as some of the later levels, it immediately lets you adopt your own playstyle in a way that doesn't feel heavy-handed or overwhelming. On a related note, Liberty Island is full of secrets. There are decently sized areas of the level that you never need to go to and you'll never see if you're not looking out for them. Since it's early in the game, none of these secrets have super impactful rewards, but there are some nice weapon mods scattered around the level, as well as some extra equipment. What's important is less the rewards and more the sheer abundance of secrets. A new player is likely to stumble upon one at least without meaning to, just while trying to navigate the level. This helps them realise that the game is going to reward exploration. They'll be on the lookout for more secrets after this throughout the rest of the game. This makes the player more observant, which in turn makes them more engaged in the world. One of the most obvious parts of this level design is the multiple routes you can take through it. The routes aren't hidden in the level, in fact you're kind of told about both of them, but that's by design. The game shows you that there are different routes in each level, and that you can usually find an alternative route if you stop and think a little bit. It would be easy for multiple paths in the first level to become overwhelming, but in Liberty Island the routes are logical enough that you never feel lost. The level design is coherent and makes sense. Showing the player that there's more than one way into the building does two things. Firstly, it teaches them to consider how they approach a problem based on their playstyle. This is where a lot of the replayability in the game comes from. Depending on how you approach a problem, you're going to have a completely different experience of each level, and no matter how you play, there's no way you can see everything in the first playthrough. More importantly, having multiple routes teaches the player that there's always an alternative if they're struggling. If one route isn't working, they can always back out and find another approach. This again makes the player more observant, but more subtly it also makes the difficult parts of the game less frustrating. If a level is too hard, it feels like a flaw in your planning, not the level itself. You feel like you're playing the game on your own terms, and that really helps you to get immersed in the experience. Another concept introduced in the opening level is optional objectives. Freeing Gunther Hermann is entirely optional, but if you do, you'll get a nice chunk of experience and the option to give him a gun so that he can take out all the enemies on the lower level. This mostly teaches the player the same thing as the hidden secrets in the level. You're encouraged to actually go and do the tasks in the level rather than just finding the easiest path to the end. This might seem obvious, but it's important for the game. The game can change quite a lot depending on whether or not you complete optional objectives, and some optional objectives in the game aren't directly told to you or obvious. Another thing this level does well is foreshadowing. As well as being directly told by the terrorist leader that there's a conspiracy going on, you can also overhear the NSF talking if you play stealthily. These conversations mention some plot points that will be important later, and they also give more context to the narrative. This is a cool addition. Being able to overhear a conversation and feel like you know something you're not meant to helps to get the player more invested in the story. So what's the point of all of this? Well, most of these points come down to the same thing, and it's what any great first level does. Liberty Island sets the player's expectations for the rest of the game, and in doing so, subtly teaches the player the way to play the game that will be most enjoyable for them. Taking the time to explore each area for secrets and hidden entrances, to listen to all the conversations, these are things that set Deus Ex apart from other games, not just of its own time, but of all time. This opening teaches you to play the game in the way that makes it shine the most. Of course, the other thing Deus Ex does is deliver on these expectations. A great opening level is meaningless if the rest of the game doesn't deliver. Despite being dated, Deus Ex is a phenomenal game. If you can put up with the level of jank and dated systems and having to patch the game to get it to run on your machine, I highly recommend giving it a go. At the very least, to experience how far ahead of its time Deus Ex's level design was. What's your favourite secret about Deus Ex? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like if you liked the video. I'll see you all next time.